Well, I think there are two reasons. One reason is, and my book actually is in looks at different periods of the Mississippi movement. Um, the first period looks at the kind of rebirth of the Black freedom movement in Mississippi. You know that after Reconstruction, there was all this repression of Black people in Mississippi because right after slavery, had a Black majority. So to maintain white political power, Black people had to be suppressed from the 1870s going to the 1950s, and you have this rebirth because of the development of, Black community developed its own social organizations, lodges, churches, businesses that could help sustain a movement, as well as the development of families. So that's the first part. But then in the 1960s, you have the beginning of nonviolent activity in the South. Their strategy was the image of Black people with guns really scared the hell out of white America. And particularly if you wanted to get intervention from Northern liberals, if you wanted to get intervention from the federal government in solidarity and support with that movement, you couldn't have a lot of Black folk running around with guns. That was one of the reasons that the nonviolent position was put out there. And so whereas a lot of these folks who were nonviolent were protected by people in the community who carried guns, the projection of this movement was nonviolence. And that's one reason, and that's one of the reasons for the mythology, if you will. It was part of the strategy. But after 1964, when particularly after the end of Freedom Summer, and when nonviolent forces, particularly SNCC and CORE, mobilized Southern Blacks and Mississippi Blacks to go to the Democratic Convention and attempted to have their delegation recognized by the Democratic Party and President Johnson. When that didn't happen, then there was a look toward a more self-reliant movement. And so after 65, you find the movement in the South, particularly the nonviolent forces, who were, again, depending upon intervention from the federal government, felt the cavalry wasn't coming. And they felt they had to rely upon their own resources. And one of those resources for protection and security was what they had been relying on all along, was the local community who defended themselves. It was during this time that Charles Evers would say, Charles Evers, who's the brother of Medgar Evers, who come to Mississippi after Medgar Evers was assassinated, if white people shoot at us, we will shoot back. And that kind of reflected the sentiment of that time, the movement, and the new strategy of protecting oneself